I was rewatching Arrival the other day, and there was this scene where the girl is asking Amy Adams' character Louise Banks the technical or scientific term for that thing where two people make a deal and they both get something out of it. Louise asks her if it was win-win or compromise, but the girl says no. She was looking for the term non-zero sum game. I remembered this conversation very clearly, but I had forgotten that it was from this film. This scene revealed an important puzzle piece that helped me to understand what was happening in the film the first time I watched it, and that is why I think it stayed with me. I love how the film explained a term but at the same time added more details to the story and the characters. It is not often that I find movies explaining an idea or concept creatively. Sometimes it just feels out of place and inconsistent with the characters.
We can't get anything from it.
Nothing escapes that horizon. Not even light.
But it is needed to truly appreciate the plot and understand the stakes involved. But I wish it could have been done creatively. At the beginning of Interstellar, the film explains its world through clips of people talking, which I liked, but then they try to do it through dialogue between characters, and it just did not work for me. And then there are movies like Primo. It rarely explains anything explicitly for the audience. We need to figure out what is happening from the conversations between the two main characters, who themselves are trying to figure out the machine that they have created. In addition to exploring the psychological consequences of science, it explores science itself. It's one of the very few films which honors the scientific process, the joy of discovering something, which makes the movie very engrossing. But towards the end, I just couldn't follow what was happening. This movie required repeated watching, and even then many parts were still unclear. In Chernobyl, there is an episode where people who mismanaged the disaster are put on trial. Professor Legasov explains how a nuclear reactor works and why it exploded that day. It was such a bold decision to keep this part. I mean, who puts a science lecture in the middle of a show? Of course, unlike movies, Chernobyl has the advantage of time, and it makes good use of it. The explanation during the trial might not be an accurate description of what went wrong on that day, but I feel it does justice to the science behind it. It is not easy to explain the working of a nuclear reactor, at the same time keep the viewers on their toes. It starts with the common knowledge and slowly builds up from there. The usage of visual aids and the stories of individuals who worked in that plant that day kept me engrossed throughout the scene. In many places, Chernobyl uses exposition for character development. How do you tell that radiation is quite dangerous and at the same time reveal some character traits?
Sir?
Get us over that building, or I'll have you shot!
If you fly directly over that core, I promise you by tomorrow morning you'll be begging for that bullet.
The question of how a nuclear reactor explodes was asked at the beginning of the show, and this scene answers it in a detailed way, which feels cathartic. In Arrival, there is a scene where Louise Banks explains the Colonel the reason behind her methods. They need to ask the aliens what is their purpose on Earth. She writes the question on the whiteboard and breaks down every part. For the aliens to understand this question, we need to know few things. Do the aliens understand a why question at all? Do they understand this quest for information? Do they understand pronouns? When we say your purpose, do they understand the difference between a specific you and a collective you? Do they have the concept of purpose itself? Do they make conscious decisions, or are they instinctive beings? This small exchange opened a whole new world for me. It felt natural and the story needed it. It is straightforward, simple. I learned how a linguist is thinking about this question, and it made me curious. And I think that's what a good explanation should look like. What do you think? Is there any movie scene which taught you something, which made you curious? Please comment below, and as always, thank you for watching. See you all in the next one.